Hello, everyone, and welcome to another edition of Pink Sock Reacts, where I watch a movie, I listen to music, whatever I'm reacting to that particular day. I was supposed to have Gorak join me, but I do believe he probably slept in, which is fine. It's really early over there in down under Australia. But I appreciate everybody for listening, for tuning in. Hit that subscribe button, hit that like button, comment, share. Let's get this all over the place. Now, Knives Out, for those of you that are not familiar with the Knives Out movie, it is a 2019 mystery film written, directed, and co-produced by Rian Johnson. I hope I'm pronouncing that right. This movie, I'm going to kind of go through things that happen in this movie and then mention my favorite scenes and then just kind of give a little review. All right, so the movie starts off with the housekeeper. She discovers the body of Walt. Not Walt, sorry, not Walt. My brain is like of Harlan. He is the grandfather. He's the older guy who's an author of a book. He's 85 years old, and it's really tragic because he's found with his throat slit. It is his 85th after his 85th birthday, after they partied and everything. But he is found by the housekeeper. And then the next day or so, police are investigating. They get the whole family together. They bring not the housekeeper, but his personal nurse in, who was friends with Harlan. And she is there just to be there at first. She wasn't really being investigated initially. But the family was being asked about certain events that was happening to figure out if it was a suicide or not. So we find out that, and this is a lot of turn of events, so bear with me on this. All right. We find out that, sorry. We find out that Blanc learned that Harlan had strained relationships with his family. Blanc is the investigator. So he finds out that Harlan had strained relationship with his family. On the day of his death, Harlan threatened to expose his son-in-law, Richard, for cheating on his daughter, Linda. He had a picture on his computer of it, and he wrote a little note. It was in an envelope, and he put it in his drawer. He then threatened to cut off his daughter-in-law Joni's allowance for stealing from him, and then he fired his son Walt from his publishing company and had an altercation with his grandson Ranson because he removed Ranson from the will, which we find out later on exactly why that happened or what was going on. We don't really find out why it happened, but we find out that he was cut out of the will. So Harlan's nurse Marta is being interviewed by the detective, and he finds out that she throws up when she lies. So he asks her, was there an affair going on? She said no and then threw up. Then turned around and was asked if the money was being laundered. She was double dipping, not Marta, but Linda. I'm getting names mixed up. Joni was double dipping in the allowance. So she basically didn't answer, but Blanc knew what was going on. So Blanc was like, oh, she was double dipping. He was cheating, but pretty much none of it was motive to off the old man. So we then end up finding out later on at a party that everyone suspects that it was suicide, but some think it might have been murder. And one of those people that thinks it might have been murder was the housekeeper. The housekeeper, Fran, I think was her name. Yeah, Fran thought could have been a murder. She was talking about how, like, oh my God, I watched these crime documentaries, this, that, and the other. I'm paraphrasing this whole movie because I'm kind of skimming over it. But she said, oh, I've heard of this, that, and the other. And then the detective decides that he's going to interview Marta. Sorry, there's a lot of events going on, so I'm trying to keep it all together. Interview Marta about the last few moments of his life and everything that was going on at the party. We see that Ranson was arguing with him, saying that, telling him that you'll regret this, old man, or something along those lines, and he left. And she said he left early. Some people showed up around 9 at the same time. Someone else, Fran, I think, showed up early to help set up the party. She started going through all that, and then we kind of see the vision of her going through the actual events, and we find out that Marta accidentally mixed up the morphine and the actual medication that he was supposed to take. And the antidote was not in her bag. So she was freaking out. She goes to call 911. He hangs up, and we find out that he told her, listen, your family is immigrants. Your mom's not here legally. I don't want anything bad to happen to you. Here's what you need to do. And basically he tells her to go and act like she's leaving, make it a point of what time it is. So basically her story is lining up with everyone else's that they told earlier. That's why I didn't really tell everybody else's story, because I didn't want to keep repeating myself. But she left early. She left about midnight, and everyone was like, oh, she left at midnight. She drives down the block. She wasn't sure if she should turn before or after the pillar. So she turns before. She hides her car under his orders, goes through the fence, climbs up the wall into a window that has a hidden doorway. And the reason why he wants her to do that is because his robe is on his bed. She puts it on, puts on a hat, walks downstairs. One of his sons will then see her thinking it's him, and will tell him to go back to bed, and she'll go upstairs. So basically the cameras show her leaving. He is seen alive, even though it's Marta. He's seen alive and goes back upstairs. So there's no suspicion of her being the one that did it. Now, this movie kind of reminds me of Clue in a way, but that's besides the point. She goes upstairs, she puts the robe and shit back, and then she sneaks back out of the house. And then she goes home, and that's that. But on her way down the thing to leave, she looks over in the window and she sees the mother. Yes, I am saying this 100% right. It is the mother of Harlan. Who knows how old she is? She's like, oh, Ranson, you're back already. Now, Ranson is the snotty grandson of Harlan. We meet him later on. He doesn't show up to the funeral. He's a real snotty brat. Anyway, she runs out, she gets in her car, and she leaves. Now, the investigator is asking her side of the story, and she's trying to figure a way to lie without throwing up. And basically, Harlan told her before he himself that here's what you tell the detectives. You tell them very vague parts of the story that isn't a lie, but it isn't the full truth. So she then tells them what he told them to tell her. Now, Blanc, being a great investigator, later on in the movie, during the little party, on her way out, Marta runs into the investigator and he says, I want you to follow me around tomorrow to solve this crime. Now, this was about the halfway point of the movie. So you figure out all this stuff halfway through, and then the rest is really, really mind-blowing events that occur during this part of the movie, this part onward. He wants her to follow him around. So she does follow him around. Now, something we found out earlier on in the movie was the different times of the night that, what was her name? Sorry, guys. Linda. Linda is a very light sleeper, so she knew every time somebody went up and down the steps. So she heard the banging upstairs whenever he tripped Marta to tell her everything, which I think I left that out, but it is what it is. And somebody else went upstairs and was like, hey, I heard a noise. Are you okay? And he's like, yeah, I just dropped the board. And around that time is when all that crazy shit was going on. But she heard all these different noises, but one of those times was the dogs barking. Now, that kind of comes into play later on in the movie, and we will get to that soon. Now, where was I at? Oh, Marta. Marta's following him around. They discover footprints in the mud, but it gets destroyed by the dogs that run out, because they run out and start messing up the footprints by accident. So she gets saved there. she notices a piece of the wood from the steps that she climbed up that broke off. She threw it out into the woods again. They then decide to check the video footage, and that's when she realizes she should have went before, not after. But that footage ends up getting destroyed, some mere coincidence. And Marta is basically trying to prove her innocence, but they go upstairs, and before they go upstairs, the dogs bring this wooden thing that was part of the steps. They realize, oh, what is that window for? They go up there and they find mud on the windowsill and some mud tracks, but it's not traceable to anybody. Marta's starting to freak out a little bit. And then we end up with the will reading. They all show up for the will reading, even during the investigation. They still have it ruled as a suicide, that event of him offing himself. And they start reading the will, and we find out that everything is left to Marta. And the family freaks out. She gets into the car to leave. The car doesn't start right. Enter Hanson, who kind of knew what was going on, you would think, or Ransom. Sorry, I got his name wrong. Ransom. His real name's Hugh, so I got the two mixed up. Two names combined. Ransom ends up in his car and says, get in my car. They get into the car and drive off. Now, Ransom knew that he wasn't going to be in the will. He was taken out. So they are now having dinner together, and he's feeding her, and he puts an empty bowl in front of her and says, tell me what happened to my father. I know he didn't off himself. So she spills the beans, tells him everything. He's like, I will help you. If you help me, you give me part of the will, and that's it. Give me part of the money, inheritance money, and that's it. So they end up driving to the toxology place, because I failed to mention before, she got a letter in the mail that said, I know what you did, with her little tag, and it shows the toxology report, which will show that he overdosed on morphine. So they go to the toxology place to hopefully retrieve it, but it's actually on fire. Now, Blanc, the investigator, notices them in the car. She speeds off with Ransom telling her to speed off. The cops are following them. They end up in a parking lot, and they're trying to get to this address that is on this note to figure out who's trying to frame her. But they end up in a parking lot. The cops end up taking Ransom away. He asks her if Ransom's the one that set her up to the chase. She said yes, which is not a lie. They end up in a car together following the cops, and she sees the street she was supposed to go on to meet up with this person by 10, and it is 9:55. She then asks Blanc, hey, is it all right if I go pick something up? I need to. He said, of course. So she goes to that spot, stops. The investigator Blanc stays in the car. She ends up going to the meeting spot to find the housekeeper friend in a chair. Yes, in a chair. And there's morphine next to the body. She's not dead yet, though. She has spiders on her face, though, and there is a burnt toxology report next to her. Marta then calls 911 to get the ambulance there. The ambulances show up, hops in the car with Ransom, and goes to the police. I believe the police station. I forget exactly where they went, but they went somewhere, and they are questioning everyone because weird events are happening. The tape was burnt. All that crazy shit happened. So basically, Marta is told that Ransom told everyone what happened. Marta then confessed. However, the investigator Blanc stopped her, and they found the actual toxology report in the weed drawer that we learned earlier on. It's a drawer where they kept their weed, and there's an actual toxology report. Well, we find out that he didn't actually overdose on morphine. He would have lived. Now, this is crazy shit, but we find out that he would have lived because he didn't overdose on morphine. We also find out that through a phone call that Fran actually lived, and she has all the information. So Ransom basically admits to trying to kill her because he's only going to get away with attempted murder in that case. He admitted to the whole switching the bottles to try to off him, But how did Marta know when the labels were mixed? Because she's such a good nurse that she knew by the looks of it. But when she saw the morphine was empty, she thought that she fucked up when she actually didn't. So basically, it was still suicide, though, in the eyes of the law. But we find out after Marta throws up on him that she lied. Fran actually didn't make it, and he admitted to his crimes. So basically, due to one of the rules of the will, if somebody's found guilty of murder or whatever, they no longer get the inheritance. And he knew that. So he was trying to set her up to make it look like she offed him, so he still gets part of at least the inheritance. But no, he gets caught in the act. Well, he goes to grab a knife and basically slay Marta. Now, earlier on in the movie, this is kind of foreshadowing because when he was still alive, Harlan stated that he wouldn't know the difference between a fake knife and a real knife and slammed the knife down. Well, when he stabbed Marta, we find out that it's actually one of them blades that retractable blades. So she lives. She ends up with the inheritance. He ends up going to jail for murder. And that's pretty much the movie. That's it summarized in like 12 minutes and 34 seconds. I really loved this movie from beginning to end. It's about a 2-hour and 10-minute movie, I do believe is the exact runtime. And I personally loved it. I thought it was great. It has a great all-star cast. Daniel Craig, Chris Evans, Jamie Lee Curtis. The list goes on. And it is an incredible movie, in my opinion. And there is a sequel, and we will review it next week. Hopefully, Grat can join me next week to talk about it, because I love having somebody to actually physically talk to. I am going to go through... I was going to go through some of the facts about the movie, which I will, but I'm not going to go through the full facts because I don't want to sit here and just read. But Netflix paid $469 million for the rights of 2 sequels. So basically, there is one sequel out already called Glass Onion, The Knives Out Mystery, but there is going to be another one coming out. This movie had a budget of $40 million, and it beat it by a lot, $311.9 million to be exact. This movie was originally set to be released, if I'm not mistaken. They wanted it to come out in 2009, I think, or 2010, but they were too busy. Everybody was too busy working on other projects, so it didn't get released until 2019. Now, what would I personally rate this movie out of, let's say, what, 5, 10? How does IMDb do it? Is it 5 or 10? They do it out of, I don't even fucking know, 10. I'd give it about an 8 out of 10. This movie is spectacular. It has a great cast. It's a lot of fun. It's a plot twist after plot twist after plot twist. Even if you watch this before you watch the movie and you know how it's going to end, still watch it. It's an incredible movie. It's been nominated and won many awards, rightfully so. And I can't wait to see the sequel. I really cannot wait to see the sequel. And if you want to watch this movie, I can't really tell you exactly what streaming app because I've got listeners from all over the globe. So the best bet to do, and I hope I get sponsored by these people because that would be awesome, because I swear by this website. I'm not sponsored, by the way. I just enjoy this company. JustWatch.com. For all of your streaming needs, movies, TV shows, go on there. No matter where you're at in the world, they have different settings. They'll tell you where each movie is. It's a beautiful tool, and I love it. It works spectacularly. If you guys want to listen to other podcasts, we do have Pink Sock Podcast every Monday, of course. We go live. We're going to start doing more lives at noon, but this one coming up is not a live. We have a very special guest for that one, and I will show a little preview for that here momentarily. But if you like other podcasts, you want to check out other podcasts, we do have recommendations in the description below. Don't forget to subscribe, like, share, and comment. That helps us out a lot and significantly. But here is a little preview, a little taste, a little snippet, if you will. I don't know what to call it. A little snippet, a little dash. What would you guys call it? Like a little preview, a little. I don't really know exactly what you would call this, but once it's done loading, you guys will get a very special taste. We already showed this on Pink Sock Podcast, but now we're going to show it on Pink Sock Reacts. Without any further ado, here is a little preview. And you may have seen it on our socials, which if you want to see our socials, you can actually visit allmylinks.com/pinksockpodcast. Everything's there. Everything. Follow us on all. And if you want to find me, I have my own All My Links. You can just find me on Instagram. Everything's there. Here's our guest for next week. Well, Monday. We have the man in pajamas himself, the pot smoking hippie. His name is
Mark Stackett, baby. Yeah.
As long as everybody knows that I don't have a pink sock.
I don't even. That was a lot of fun. That was a great episode. If you're not familiar with who Muck Sticky is, go give him a like, follow, tell him Pink Sock sent you. He's an incredible artist, and I want to thank each and every one of you for tuning in to this broadcast. Anyone that's listening afterwards, make sure you comment, show your love, share your love to all the other podcasts. If you check out any of the podcasts in the description below, tell them Pink Sock sent you. I love you all, and I hope you enjoyed Knives Out. It is a fantastic mystery film. It is very similar to Clue, in my opinion, and love y'all. As always, live long, rock hard.